do what we call community-based counseling. We do intensive in-home counseling with young people, and we have a group of counselors all across Hampton Roads that go into the home and they work with the child in the home. The goal of what it is that we do is to bring stability to the home, to help that child stay in the home, so they won't have to have experience any type of out of home placement or anything like that. And we work with the child, but also we work with the entire family. And we have seen amazing results in these past 13 years of us being able to work with young people all across Hampton Roads, and just to be able to see their lives change. We always focus on the quality of our service. The quality of our service means everything. And I think that anybody, when we start talking about a therapist, when we start talking about a counseling service, the quality of the service is what makes the difference. We don't look at our clients. We don't look at our clients as they're just numbers or anything like that. These are people. These are children that we're working with. And for a lot of them, the reason that they're in our service is because of some type of traumatic experience have happened in their life. And woe unto us if we be the ones that add to their experience, when we have a responsibility to help and be a part of them growing and getting better. So that's what it is that we do at our agency. Now, does our agency, do we have all of the answers? No, we do not have all of the answers. That's why we like to have things like this, and we offer resources. We offer the phone number to the National Suicide Hotline. We suggest that people visit the National Alliance of Mental Health website. So we suggest those things because everybody don't have it all, but the more resources that we can collect to help and to give our young people, the better off they will be. And since this pandemic, we've seen a rise. We've seen a rise. I believe everybody can agree that. I think over these past couple of years, I think everybody mental health has been impacted by this pandemic. I was reading an article that was published on August the 9th. Dr. Victor Fanari, he is the vice chair of child and adolescent psychiatry at Zucker Hillside Hospital in New York. And this is what he said. He says that he's seen a firsthand increase in mental health problems among young people. And he says, we've seen our emergency rooms have a 50% increase in suicidal adolescents just during this pandemic, that the emergency room had a 50% increase in suicidal adolescents. So if I don't say nothing else, and if I've said it has made any headway, I want us to understand this, that mental health is real in our lives of our young people. It's real. It's not just a phase that they're going through. It's not just or they'll get over it. Me being a faith leader, I also always hear would just go to God and just pray about it. And if I had time, but I don't have time, I can actually show you in scripture the amount of people that was in scripture that we can look at today and say that they was clinically depressed. So no matter what your faith is, there's nothing wrong with you if you seek out a therapist. There's nothing wrong with you if you go to your guidance counselor. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. And just as if I hurt my arm, if I hurt my leg, I go to the doctor. If I got a headache, I'm not feeling well, I go to the doctor for all these other parts of my body. Well, we have great people. Especially in this Hampton Roads area, that are gifted, that are educated, that have great intentions on helping people when they're not feeling well in their mind and their emotions. Thank y'all so much for your time.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Rondell. And I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but we will have a question and answer period at the end, and just open dialogue for our participants to share and really ask questions. If you do put anything in the chat, we'll hold that until the end. All right. Thank you again, Rondell, for sharing. We do appreciate all of that information. And I'll also have that list of resources that we have here in the Hampton Roads area posted as well at the end of our session. Okay. Next, I would like to introduce Adrienne Smith with the Up Center. And she's going to talk to us about what she does at the Up Center and trauma amongst teens.
Good morning, everyone. Give me just one moment so I can pull up our presentation here. All right, so let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
No? Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Just a moment. All right. Let's see.
There we go.
How about now?
All right. Yes. Thank you.
We're good to go?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Adrienne Smith. I am a clinician at the Up Center with the New Vision Substance Use Program, as well as doing outpatient therapy. I was invited here to talk about two things that I am extremely passionate about, which is our youth and mental health. This is going to be a very high-level overview of some observations I've seen in my practice. And so feel free to jot down any notes or questions that you may have. And if we have time at the end to address those, I would be more than happy to. So working with our youth, I call them my kiddos, so you will hear me say that throughout this presentation. There are three themes or recurring issues that I've seen presented, and that's going to be depression, anxiety, and then of course trauma-related disorders. So when we think about depression, we think about any condition that, or a condition that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, how you act. Anxiety is going to be something where those normal feelings of nervousness and anxiety that typically come when our body is in danger continues even when there's no presence of danger. And then the last one is trauma-related disorders, and these stem from an extremely stressful situation that one has experienced, which we know is trauma. And those traumas can look like a lot of things. I think we typically think of, Saving Private Ryan, PTSD, our war vets, things like that. But for our kiddos, that can look like homelessness. It can look like domestic violence. It can look like being a foster kid. It can look like physical or sexual abuse. So, just kind of getting ourselves thinking about trauma and expanding our view of that is very important. Something that I will say is that, you can experience feeling depressed today here or anxiety here, or you can experience trauma. But what really makes a difference as far as from a clinical perspective is going to be a disruption in functionality. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write down the word ROSE, ROSE. There's 4 areas that typically are impacted when you have an actual disorder. R is for relationships. O is for our occupation or your job. S is going to be for your social life. And then E is education and for our kiddos' school. So again, those are the 4 areas that typically are disrupted when we're experiencing the clinical depression, anxiety, or trauma-related disorder. What are some risk factors? You're going to notice that a lot of these different disorders I'm going to talk about today have a lot of similarities and they kind of overlap. And one thing is the risk factors. Genetics. Did mom or dad experience anxiety or depression, right? Personality. Am I someone who has a hard time bouncing back? Am I easily overwhelmed by stressful situations? And then environmental factors. Adverse childhood experiences. Did mom and dad divorce when I was younger? Did I experience violence? Was there violence in my neighborhood? Those type of things. Was there a major life change? And so talking about that, now we're going to shift into some facts. And Mr. Davis did an excellent job of kind of prepping you guys for this. So I'm just going to reiterate some things that he talked about here. So when we're talking about risk factors as far as genetics, studies show that there's a 40% chance that if you had a mom or a dad, brother or sister that experienced depression or anxiety, you're more likely to also develop those disorders. Here's one that hits hard. 3.8 million of our kiddos ages 12 to 17 have had at least one major depressive episode. So we're not talking about a bad day. We're talking about 2 weeks of persistent sadness, lack of sleep, lack of eating, hopelessness, suicidal thoughts, where they could be clinically diagnosed with depression. Something else that's interesting is when we compare our female to male counterparts, there is a higher level of women, right, who experience anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder than their male counterparts. We can talk about why that is, but that's a conversation for another day. Something else that's interesting, being that this is the Urban League of Hampton Roads, there are certain groups that also are disproportionately experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder than other research groups. And that's going to be our Latin Americans, our African Americans, and our Native Americans. Again, another conversation for another day. So you may be wondering, what does it look like, right? We have our typical thoughts about what depression looks like, you know, sadness and loss of appetite, sleeping too much, right? But what I want to kind of get us thinking about as adults and as parents is that what we think these things look like are not necessarily what you will see in your kiddos, right? Because think about it. The brain doesn't fully develop until we're about 26 years old. So we don't have the tools yet, or the kiddos don't have the tools yet to fully express what it is they're seeing. So while you may see some of the typical symptoms, again, with depression, hopelessness, or suicidal thoughts, it may also look like avoidance. It may also look like pretending to be sick or refusing to go to school or being excessively worried about their parents dying. With anxiety, you think about difficulty concentrating, trouble falling asleep, feeling on edge all the time. But with your kiddo, it may look like them being overly worried about exams or their performance in extracurricular activities. It can also look like self-harming, so cutting, scratching, biting, pulling their hair out. With trauma-related disorders, again, we think about flashbacks and nightmares. We think about avoiding certain person, places, and things. But with our kiddos, it can also look like bedwetting. It can look like a regression in behaviors. Your kid starts talking like a baby or stops talking at all. It can look like unusual clinginess to their parents. So when we're interacting with our kiddos, I really want to encourage us to not just dismiss the behavior as, well, this kid is just misbehaving or they're just a problematic child. Every behavior is a communication, right? And so when your child is responding in a certain way, I really want to encourage us to start thinking about what are they trying to communicate to me, okay? So we've talked about defining these different things. We've talked about what it looks like, and we've talked about some statistics. Now we're going to start transitioning into what can I do, right? And so there's two things we can do. We can learn how to manage it in real life situations and treating the symptoms. And then we can actually talk about actual professional care. So that's what we're going to get into now. So coping skills. Coping skills is how do we manage difficult situations to bring ourselves back down to a level of calm, a level of balance. You may not really think about it this way, but there's two types of coping skills. You can have negative coping skills and you can have positive coping skills. So this is how I explain it to my kiddos. Negative coping skills are usually easier. They're impulsive, they don't require any thinking. And so it feels good in the beginning. However, the long-term consequences are typically not good and they usually make your situation worse. So for example, kiddos in school, Someone else comes up to them and pushes them. So the kiddo pushes them back. It feels good to get that energy out, to push the other student, right? However, it does not feel good when the teacher catches you. You're now suspended. You get home, you can't play your PS5, you lose all your screen time, and you're stuck doing chores all weekend. Versus these healthy coping skills or our positive coping skills, which typically are a little harder. It's not as satisfying up front, but you get greater satisfaction in the long run. So same situation, a kiddo pushes you. It's hard to walk away from that, right? It's very hard. But in the long run, you don't have to worry about suspensions or getting in trouble when you get home. And the reason those positive coping skills are so difficult is because what happens is we're in an emotional state. The thinking part of our brain cuts off. So you really have to stop, right? And cut that thinking part back on to actually be able to implement the positive coping skills. So in my experience, one of the biggest negative coping skills that I see with my kiddos, and again, Mr. Davis kind of touched on this, is going to be substance use. Right? So here's some quick facts, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but 20% of high school seniors have admitted to using a medication without a prescription. The most used drugs, of course, are going to be alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco, because marijuana is legal in Virginia. All these things are easier to get access to, especially if mom or dad drinks or smokes, right? Here's something that's kind of concerning, or very concerning, actually. Our kiddos, they're not starting, in high school, they're starting young. So in 2016, the number of eighth graders using inhalants, cough medications like triple C and amphetamines actually doubled, right? And so think about this. These statistics that I've shown or shared with you are from 2019. What has happened since 2019? COVID-19. So, these statistics were already alarming, for our kiddos as it relates to mental health and substance use before the pandemic. And we all know personally how it's impacted us being, mental health professionals and working with children. So it is a safe assumption, I would say, that, years down the line, when we are able to gather that data, that these statistics are going to be exponentially higher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about negative coping skills. What are some positive things that our kiddos can do? Exercise, being active, getting involved in sports. 30 minutes a day goes a long way of getting that dopamine up, right? Mindfulness exercise, grounding, which is basically a technique that we use a lot for anxiety and depression actually, and it's used to kind of keep us in the here and now. When we think about depression, it's an excessive reflection of things that are in the past. When we think about anxiety, it's an excessive worrying about things that are in the future. A colleague of mine told me once that it's very important that, we don't time travel. We don't go into the past. We don't go into the future. We stay right here in the here and now, right? Because you can't change either. And especially when you're worrying about something that may or may not even happen. So it's unfair to you. So grounding is a technique that we use to keep us in the here and now. Meditation and prayer, deep breathing, positive affirmation. Reflecting on past victories is a really good one for our kiddos because, sometimes they have chronic depression or chronic suicidal ideations. So I really like to encourage them, hey, you've gotten through this before, so you have the tools. It's hard, but you can do it again. Our kiddos love social media. Our kiddos love iPhones and Androids. So there are actually some free mental health apps out there that they can download and put on their phone to help them with coping with any type of depression or anxiety they may be experiencing. Some of the ones that I really love are Calm Harm, Combined Minds, and Harm Less. And what I love about these tools is that you can actually go in and you can choose, hey, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling depressed. I feel like hurting myself. And the app will actually develop a list of coping skills for you to use to help you ride that wave. So you don't even really have to do a whole lot of thinking. You just need to open that app and it will help do the work for you. So we've talked about our coping skills, right? Our coping skills are excellent for treating symptoms, right? But let me get you to think about this. If you're in a car accident and the ambulance comes and they put you in the bus, they will stop the bleeding. They will stabilize your neck, but they don't drop you off at home. They take you to a hospital where actual professionals can come in and completely help you to stabilize and fix that issue. It is the same thing with mental health. Coping skills are designed to help us to stabilize, but actual psychotherapy and seeing your mental health professional helps to maintain and eliminate those symptoms, right? And reduce them to a level, because sometimes it's not perfect. They won't all go away, but you learn how to manage them so that it doesn't impact our roads, right? It doesn't impact our ability to function. That's what we do. So psychotherapy, outpatient therapy, counseling, mental health treatment, it's all the same thing. It's when you go and you see an actual professional who is trained to help you with resolving those underlying issues that are creating the symptoms that we're seeing, okay? So I've listed a couple of different treatments here, and I'm not going to go into all of them, of course, but that first one you see is CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. This is an excellent tool. It's in every mental health professional's toolbox. And the reason being is that it basically helps with everything. So anxiety, depression, trauma responses and trauma-related disorders are all treated with cognitive behavioral therapy. And it sounds like a lot of words, but it's very simple. The way we think impacts the way we act. So we can reframe and change how we think about a situation. It will influence and change how we behave. That's CBT. Another piece that we use is also medication. And I understand some parents are kind of apprehensive about our kiddos using medication. And it's understandable, but sometimes that can help with stabilizing so that the kiddo can be able to focus, can implement those coping skills, and can be able to receive the treatment through therapy with the mental health professional. It's very important to note that sometimes with antidepressants, it can actually elevate some suicidal thoughts, especially with younger kiddos. So it's very important to make sure we're monitoring those who are taking medication, not being afraid to ask those questions that we think are taboo. Are you having suicidal thoughts? Are you thinking that you're going to or want to die? And if that is the case, of course, you want to seek out mental health or support immediately. And the quickest way to get help is 911. In this situation, consistency is key, everyone. Make sure that you set realistic expectations for yourself. A lot of the issues that we experience with depression and anxiety and trauma, it didn't happen in a day, so it's not going to be cured in a day. So really being consistent, not skipping your medication, not skipping your therapy sessions, really are what's going to help you with getting the treatment that you need and the support that you need so that you can resume your life, okay? So the Up Center has been providing support. We have been a pillar in the community as a nonprofit since 1883. And so we have a large range of activities and supports that we have, not just for our kiddos, but also our family and adults, despite what your need is. But since I'm here to talk about the kiddos, let's talk about some programs that we have. So the first one I mentioned a little earlier was the New Visions program, which is a $670,000 grant-funded program, the first of its kind here in Hampton Roads. And what it does is it provides substance use treatment for kiddos 18 and under in the Hampton Roads area in an outpatient setting. It is the first and only program of its kind in this area. We also provide your traditional outpatient therapy, mentoring, team up, which is a group support, and then peer recovery, which is basically where we have individuals who have real life lived experience, whether that be mental health or substance use, who come alongside our kiddos and walk with them to help show them that you can get through this. I did it. I understand where you're coming from. And here's how you work through these things. Again, we have an exhaustive list of support. If you're interested in any of these services or learning more information, you can definitely visit us at www.theupcenter.org. And we have multiple sites in the Hampton Roads area, including Norfolk, Suffolk, and Portsmouth. We also have a military family center in Virginia Beach. Again, my name is Adrienne Smith. I am a clinician at the Up Center. It has been a pleasure talking to you today and being able to share with you these tools. That concludes my time, and I will turn this back over to Erica. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Adrienne. That was wonderful. A wealth of information and definitely needed. I learned some different things, and I didn't know I was already doing some of those coping skills with my kids at home. We do have regular bedtimes, wake up times, and we do nightly prayer together as well. So I think we are on the right track to keeping them healthy. All right. So without further ado, I want to also introduce Charnel Brown, who is going to talk to us about her personal experience and the importance of seeking help from others. And again, recognizing those signs and that even though everything may look okay with someone, it might not be okay.
Yes.
So Charnel, thank you for coming and gracing us with your presence and your expertise and personal experience. We appreciate you sharing today.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the Urban League for trusting me with their, and I love what Ms. Smith said, their kiddos. I love that, the kiddos. With this, I want to thank you guys again for allowing me to be a part of Project Ready. And I learned a lot as well listening to Mr. Davis and Ms. Smith. I want to talk to you guys on a personal level. You're not alone. You think that you're alone, but you're not. I too went through the same thing, depression. I realized that top of my game, I lost my purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was anymore. Therefore, I felt that I did not want to be here anymore. Very scary situation. But I didn't have the tools, like for on another level, an Up Center. We didn't have that back then. And so I got through it. I didn't know it. Thank you, Ms. Smith, with the coping mechanisms that I didn't know that I had within me. But then I was older. So I think that someone had mentioned that, our brain doesn't, really register and get into it until we get a little older. And so I was older and I was able to cope through the grace of God. And I really believe that the reason why he kept me is because I needed to be here talking to you guys today about it. The operative word is getting through it. Guys, get your help. My thing is your purpose. God has given us all a purpose on this earth. And we lose sight of that purpose. That's what happens. That's when depression comes in. That's for me on a personal level. So find out what your purpose is and get this help. We didn't have this help. Guys, we love you. And you're here for a reason. And you have a purpose. And I want you guys to carry out that purpose. So with these incredible resources that you guys have, reach out to these resources. What I love about, another level Up Center, you guys you're human beings and they love you and they're going to listen to you. And I think that is our problem. We don't listen to our youth enough. We don't pay attention to the signs. And these wonderful organizations are willing either to come into your home or or however they do it, they're there for you. And they're going to listen to you without judgment. Because that's another issue too. We have a tendency to judge. And what I love too is we've all gone through this. We've all had depression. We just didn't know what it is, especially in our community. We don't want to deal with it. We have issues. And what scares me is the stats of all of our little babies committing suicide. That hurts me. That hurts me. When I saw that, that hurts me. You know, because you guys have a purpose, and I want you to be here. I want you to be here. I want you to grow. I want you to be what God intended for you to be. That's so important because we're not going to be here long. So we need you guys to carry on. But the opposite word is getting through. And these people will help you get through whatever that issue is. And guys, remember too, we're perfect in our imperfections. And I want you guys to get through. It's important. Find what your purpose is. Find out what it is. You're on this earth for a reason. God did not put you down here for you not to do things and to be great. And I know with the PTSD, it hurts. It really, really hurts. But these people are allowing you to voice your issues and to voice why, you are depressed. And back then, like I said, we did not have that. We didn't. And a lot of us did not make it in the industry. A lot of us did not. So I want you guys, please, please use this opportunity to go out and seek help. And it's okay to seek help. It's okay. And like I said, I wish I would have had that back then. I didn't have that. We didn't have it. It could have been there, but we didn't know how to get to it. And now you guys have the resources to get to it. Another level, the Up Center. Run there. Run. They're there to help you. And we don't want you to die. We want you to live. We want you to live. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. I don't know. I think listening to everybody and listening to the stats, it really hurts. And I want you guys to live. I want you to find your purpose. I want you to go after it and be great. Just be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Charnel. And that's exactly what Project Ready is here for. Thank you, Charnel. She is one of our co-chairs for Project Ready, and we thank her so much. And thank you, Charnel, for your service to our project and lending your voice and your time to us to ensure that this very important topic is addressed with our youth. As you stated before, you're not going to be here always. So they have to carry it on for us. And it is important that they are here and that they are healthy.
Yes.
And that they know how to cope with the things that life throws us, because we don't have so much control over those things.
Yes.
So we certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk about your personal experience and sharing that. We know that some of us have had our own personal experiences with depression or anxiety and just overall trauma that we've experienced in our lives. I did see quite a few questions. Well, not quite a few, but a couple questions for our health professionals. And if there are questions for Charnel, I'm sure she wouldn't mind answering as well. But one of those questions that I received in the chat was about approaches. And I'm not really sure because I'm not in the public school arena any longer. But one of the questions was, what are the approaches being considered to be more proactive in addressing mental health in schools, like community-based or school-based programs and interventions? Like I said, I personally don't know of the initiatives and programs that they're currently implementing. I can't imagine that they aren't, because of the pandemic and the experiences of students that they've, come in contact with at the public school, and just overall, just getting kids to come to school. I know virtual has been more than challenging for our students and for adults too. So I'm not sure what exactly is being offered. And I know Project Ready is, we're doing this as one way to reach our youth and talk about mental health. And hopefully we're reaching their parents as well, because they're an important part of the equation as well. If they don't have those necessary tools and the knowledge base as well, then they aren't able to help their children. So that means that, we're relying on others to help our own children in our lives. So we don't want to just do that or leave it to someone else to recognize and take care of our kids. So any thoughts from Rondell and Adrian, or anything that you know of personally that's happening in the public school?
Absolutely. So we do have a lot of providers provide what's called therapeutic day treatment, which is a service in which there are counselors actually in the school. And so children who may have difficulty behaviorally or functioning, whether it's a lot of times we see ADHD is a huge one, right? Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Basically, we come into the schools and we're there all day. And we're able to, when the kiddo becomes overwhelmed or needs extra support, we're able to kind of pull them out of the class, teach them coping skills to help them be able to better function in the classroom. So that's a big one that's in a lot of our public schools. I know there are different providers, so it just depends on what city you're in. But I'm pretty sure there's TDT in all, I would say all the cities. I know Norfolk, Suffolk, Portsmouth, all have TDT services. So, Rondell, I'm not sure if you know of anything else with that.
Yeah, I do know. I think the city of Hampton is looking to bring it back into this school. We've actually been contacted about going into an elementary school in Hampton. I know a lot of schools with COVID, they brought staff and students back, but they didn't bring in those therapeutic day treatment counselors. But I think now some of them are starting to see the necessity of it, and they're slowly starting to bring those counselors back into the school. So I was going to say exactly what Adrian said.
Another question, just personally, do you know that if they are planning to kind of train the staff as well, and recognizing some of these things with the students? Because it's one thing to have counselors come in and treat the kiddos and see those behaviors, but what I've found as a teacher in school and department chair as well, that a lot of the teachers that I worked with didn't know how to cope with those students either. So a lot of times they might be getting into trouble and being disciplined simply because that teacher or that person couldn't handle the behavior, or maybe not so empathetic to what's really going on with that student. So I'm interested to know if they are training or having mental health professionals come in to talk to the staff as well, so that they can also be a covering arm for those students that need that type of care.
Right. Go ahead, Rondell.
I would say my wife is a teacher in Portsmouth, and they have had discussions and more, what's the word I want to use, the professional development training they use. They've actually had a couple of those trainings for mental health and being able to recognize those things. And just as she teaches in Portsmouth, again, I don't know if that's every school, but I know that she's had a couple of those trainings to help identify. And I believe it was because of, going back to what we were just talking about, those TDT counselors being taken out of the school. It was trying to get this crash course of what to see and what to recognize and things like that.
Nice. We have another question in the chat. What has been the impact of COVID on the mental health of Black children? Do we have any stats for that at all? Or do you see an increase in cases?
What I see at our office.
Yeah.
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 I don't know any statistics, and a lot of that's because we're still actively in the pandemic, but just being on the ground, prior to COVID, I was actually doing TDT, right? And so with the pandemic and everyone being sent home, we were able to revert to telehealth. And so something that I saw is the lack of resources. Right. I do feel like our kiddos and the kiddos of color in our lower socioeconomic statuses, are at a disadvantage. And so for that reason, there's an increase in mental health without treatment just because they don't have the resources. They don't have the computers. They don't have the transportation. They don't have the internet connection, you know what I mean? And so there is a lack of resources that negatively impact our kiddos of color. Yes.
Yeah.
I know one thing that I've seen in our office since the pandemic is our clients have gotten younger. The behaviors are more severe, but the clients are younger. Well, at first, before the pandemic, I think I could probably say our average age was probably somewhere between 12 and 16. Now, over this past year and a half or so, we're seeing more 6-year-olds, 7. We actually got a call for a 3-year-old. That's just over this course of this pandemic that I've seen it with my own eyes again at our office, that our clients are much younger and the behaviors are much more severe.
Yeah.
One more question. What can be done to help the parents who don't realize that their children or their child is having problems? I can speak, for this, of course, research. We provide and do these type of sessions to, provide more knowledge and skills with identifying those symptoms, different things that we, are accustomed to thinking about as far as depression and what the symptoms are. And those are just what we know or what we think we know, especially for adults. But for children, I think it's going to take programs like ours and others to really make the push for parents and students to join. I know it's important for me to have students to recognize that for themselves or that others, they have lots of friend groups. They're extremely social. So not just to take, what they see as surface. This might be a real problem. So, knowing that and having those skills and that knowledge base to be able to say to that friend or acquaintance, hey, are you okay? I've been here, or the Up Center is a place I know, or another level. Let me, get you this information, or as Ms. Smith indicated, the apps that they have. So I'm not sure what else we can do for parents if they're not actively looking.
Right.
I think that platforms like this are an excellent tool. A lot of the way that we get people involved as far as the parents, it really is just word of mouth, as you encounter the kiddos who need the support, incorporating the family into that. So like I know with community-based counseling, with intensive in-home, there usually is a family component where you bring the family in because we recognize that the kiddos need support. They're not independent individuals. And a lot of the things that they're experiencing are a result of what's going on in the home, whether it's intentional or not. So psychoeducation, which is just educating people, adults, family, about what these things look like, is very effective. And then sometimes, I encourage my kiddos, and empower them to understand what they're dealing with so they can go and talk to their mom and dad about what they're dealing with and be able to educate them, because they're in the house and they know their parents better than I do.
I have to say too, that because I have an acting school in Houston, Texas, and Ms. Smith, what you're saying is exactly correct. The kids, they need somebody to listen to when they talk. We have a program where we listen, where they're in charge, and we're just facilitators. And so I find that when we do that, they open up. And we have plays where they create their own plays, and there's no. And so through that, we see what's happening in their home or in their family. And then we invite the parents, to come in. And so indirectly, they're listening, even though it's kind of hard for a kid to go to their parents and say what's wrong. Right. But with this program, it's indirectly. Right. And so they all win. And so I understand what you're saying. That activity is so important, in a kid's development, especially going through depression.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can I add something else to that? I believe having these conversations in the space where our young people are important.
Yeah.
So I believe having these conversations on social media open, so they can hear them, and their parents can hear those conversations as well. Right. Yeah. I think that sometimes we have these backdoor, closed door conversations about mental health, but actually I think is healthy, and I think it's important for us, if we're going to have these conversations, have it on a Facebook Live, have it on an Instagram Live, so they can scroll and pop in, and maybe that parent is listening, maybe they are tuned in. So I think if we have those, have these type of conversations up front, exactly in the space that they are, I believe that that's going to help as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Perfect. There's a question in the chat for you, Charnel. What are the things that celebrities like yourself can do to mitigate the stigma of mental health in the Black community?
What we're doing now.
Yeah.
Dialogue. We must have dialogue and honesty. We have to, people think that, actors, there's a myth about actors that we're separate than everybody else, and we're all the same. And I think that, with Project Ready, we need more of this, for the actors, the entertainers to come in and say, I'm just like you. There's no difference. And I think we have a problem with that, thinking that we're here and they're there and we're all the same. It's just our job. But I think that if we open up a little bit more and be honest with one another, that we can go, a lot further than where we are right now. But being that we're starting with this is amazing. And I have to say, I've learned so much. Oh my God. I mean, so much about this, and I'm going to share it with others. I'm going to take it, and use it, the tools with my acting school. It's just been amazing. I thank you.
And I think that's important too, just culturally, in the Black community, we do better with word of mouth anyway.
Yes. Yes, we do.
So the more we have these conversations out in the open, and, again, having those skills, learning what things to look for, we can help to spread the word. Exactly. Even if we don't have people that are able to join, or they're not on social media, that's not, their thing, but we can at least get that information for ourselves and share it. And I think that's important. All right, I'm going to check for a few more questions, and I'm loving the dialogue. Thank you so much. I think that is some of the last of the questions. I do want to respect everyone's time. We want to make sure it's a powerful, packed hour, making sure we have these conversations and share our resources. I will put them up now. Also in the chat is the information for Mr. Davis's organization, Another World, and the phone number, Another Level, excuse me. And
Just changing our name. We got
I
new
sure
name.
did. In other words, you know how you
We
do
done went from
growing up. I watched it.
we done went from new levels to a new
My
world.
great grandmother used to show that. We used to watch that every day when I stayed with her. But yes, his information is in the chat. But I definitely will put it up on the screen for everybody to see as well as we close the session. Are there any more questions? You certainly can unmute at this time if you have a question. I did see all of the questions in the chat, but we would love any final words of wisdom from Ms. Brown.
Oh, this is hope. There's hope. There's resources out there for you kiddos. I love that, kiddos. There's help out there for you guys. Know your purpose, find it. They'll help you walk through it so you can be who God intended for you to be.
Perfect. Thank you. Adrian, if you don't mind to put your information in the chat as well. And I have a student asking about the mental health apps.
Good.
Yes, so I'll put those in the chat as well, but those apps are Calm, Harm, CALMHARM, Combined Minds, so COMBINEDMINDS. Pretty sure I spelled that right. And the third one was Calm, Harm, Combined Minds, and Harmless.
Harmless.
That's for like for self-harming and if you're having suicidal thoughts. So HARMLES. And they're excellent tools. So I encourage you to download those, kiddo, for sure.
Yeah, but we'll she's gonna type it in the chat for you as well. Keep this up for a few more minutes so that you can get all of that information. I just want to thank you all for participating today. It was a wonderful session and dialogue.
Yeah.
We look forward to having you with us next month as well. We're going to talk about college readiness.
Yes.
And some of the things that you need to know if you're planning to go right away or later. At Project Ready, we want you to explore all pathways. Everyone's not going to go to college right away, but we want you to be prepared for that when you do, and your career. And in January, we'll have a financial literacy workshop. So please definitely follow us on Facebook. If you haven't already joined the group, we do have a Project Ready group that will stay up to date with all of our events and monthly sessions, as well as the Eventbrite link to register, because the information for scholarships and paid internship opportunities will be forthcoming. So we want you to make sure that you have all of that information as well. So if you're registered, that means we have your email address and contact information to share all those wonderful opportunities with you. We don't want you to miss it at all. That's what Project Ready is all about, getting you ready for the world. Whatever you have going on next, we want to make sure you have all of the tools, all of the resources available to make sure it's a successful journey. Okay, so all of the great accolades here in the chat. Thank you again for participating, and special thanks to our co-chair, Charnel, especially Rondell Davis and Adrian Smith. You guys were phenomenal, and we cannot thank you enough for sharing all of your gems and all of the knowledge that you have. And we look forward to working with you again to make sure that we get the word out. All right. So if there are no more questions, which I don't see that there are, again, Adrian's information is in the chat as well as the apps, but I'll go ahead and put the resources up here. But we will adjourn and welcome you back again next month, and that is December 17th.
Beautiful.
Oh, the 18th. I apologize. December 18th is our next session for college readiness.
Yes.
So we will be back here on that Saturday from 11 to 12 as well, talking about what you need to do to prepare for college. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
And have
you.
a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Thank you,
Take
everybody.
care.
Hello, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.